my proposal is a modest and a pragmatic one. Modest, because it demands very little effort from you. Pragmatic, because it costs very little, and you don't have to ask anyone's permission. I just say the other disadvantage of coming with Rory, he always opens up the swearing, and there's a chance if I come off Rory, I'll turn into Tourette's machine. So I'm guarding that. Again, there are 3 near misses in just those sentences, I'm afraid. It's been a long day. So, now, I think, and this is based on the paper I wrote 6 years ago now, and in that I wanted to champion, not just planning, but planners. I wanted to say that you people are the answer. So I think you might find my answer initially paradoxically, because my answer is to say that the biggest barrier to understanding consumers is ourselves. And I came to this conclusion, so when we do research, we say it's because we don't know something about the consumer. I think the question to say, why don't you know? And this is something that came to me quite early in my career. Actually, it's actually on the day I first met Rory, as it would happen. And I was asked into a brainstorm at Ogilvy to discuss Argos, an account that Ogilvy was busy losing at that point. And we had a number of very highly paid and influential people in the room. And it dawned on me as the discussion went on that the only person in the room who probably regularly shopped at Argos was me, and possibly Rory. Yeah, my first experience with Rory is this, is that I sort of realising this, I did a monologue about the wonders of the Argos catalogue and explained how you used to be able to get 4-way sockets in there, then they invented the 6-way socket and then the 8-way socket, recognising the demands of their customers, which is something Argos do brilliantly. And then the Argos catalogue circulates around the room, about 20 minutes, a voice pipes up and goes, "Fuck me, an 8-way adapter." And that's when I met Rory. What I realised is, obviously in that room, people say, we're going to do some research. At this point, I realised what you're researching is that most of the people in the room are just too up themselves to go to Argos, buy something and pay attention to the experience. This is my main contention. Research often is really there. It's a £20,000 solution for snobbery, laziness, being unobservant and having a complete lack of imagination or empathy. Right? Now, this is really my point, really, is to say that empathy is an incredibly powerful tool in our industry and one you can develop and learn. Now, unashamedly, in the 2004 paper, if you want to download it from What, please do. I'm keen to cruise those download figures into double numbers. Is a paper unheeded, unread, and unloved at the time, and still probably is. It was honestly Cartesian in its inspiration, because what I love about Descartes as a philosopher is he said, I will look into my own thoughts, I will understand the nature and quality of them, and I will learn which I can trust and which I cannot. You can go all the mind-body split stuff, don't get bogged down in that. It's the thing about learning how your thoughts feel. There's an entire school of philosophy based on it, it's called phenomenology. Now, one of the things is that so I think we can learn to be more empathetic. Now, it's just one of the classic thing that anthropologists do before participant observation is they write down a list of all their prejudices and all their beliefs about the people they're about to spend time with, and then all the things they believe those people believe, so they know the difference between themselves and their audience, right? Have you ever done this exercise for any of your audiences? It used to be regarded as good practice in market research. So Wendy Gordon, doyen of market research, waved her hand at that point. It's an incredibly easy exercise. Now, obviously, by and large, if advertising people write down their prejudice about consumers, incredibly long, bloody list, right? But it's important to get that shit out of the way. It's happened. Okay. This is the thing. I think you can learn to think your way into the mind of any consumer. So I'll give you an idea of, for me, roughly how this works. So I've got to understand how to sell people £4,000 bags. Now, admittedly, if you've got a TED bag like Rory, basically you've paid £4,000 for a bag. But I think the lady consumer of the expensive bag, right? So obviously I don't buy £4,000 bags. So what do? I think about, I say, okay, is it a one-off big purchase of the year? Do they piss that kind of money up the wall all the time? Where does it sit, right? Okay, it's a big purchase of the year. Okay, what's my big purchase of the year? Laptop. I know what a big purchase feels like. Is it a status thing? Do I want to know what other people feel? Do I want people to believe that someone else gave it to me? I know what all these things feel like, and I add them together empathetically, and I think roughly I can get into the mindset of what I need to tell someone to flog them a very expensive bag. Right? Now, I was reminded this last night, we had a very successful behavioural economics event. There was a chap there who I first met when we pitched for the Child Support Agency. I was surprised to find after 6 years he remembered me. But the reason he remembered me, he said he felt it's very important for the Child Support Agency that everyone who works in the business should have their own children, which, as you probably say to the man from the Child Support Agency, as far as I know, I don't, right? But at the time, he said to her, do you have children? And to which my riposte was, no, I don't, but I used to be one. Right? And I thought it's entirely fair, really. Insight into family, I was on one end of it, it's a good start. It's certainly true. I have a nephew. Just the idea of not seeing my nephew can cause me to tear up. The idea of being refused to be able to see him is even worse. Now, obviously, that's not being a parent. What do I do is dial that up to 11 and keep pushing, and I get a feeling of the hurt and anger that someone at the CSA is going through. And of course, you might say, OK, but it's not real. But don't we all know the difference between imagining something and when that thing happens for real? We know that transformation. So you take the imagination and you add your experience, that transformation from when something goes from imagination to real. Yeah? You know that? We all, as teenagers, we imagine what that first kiss would be like. And I'm still imagining. So, but my point is maybe a profound one here. I think empathy is the great truth of humankind. One thing that I say, when people say you could never understand what I feel that's an affront to humanity. With sufficient effort, I think you can always understand what someone else feels. It may be a great journey, it may be you would only get close, but that's the great question. And what I wanted to really found was, in a way, a humanist understanding of planning. That we'd be planners through human understanding rather than scientific understanding. Because the science is, I have nothing against science. Science is perfectly good, but it's just the reductive thing, reduce everything down to neurons. As a philosopher, John's already name-checked this, I used to, there's a school of philosophy of mind that reduces everything just down to material sort of atoms, elements, with limited materialism. There is no mind, there is only matter. And interestingly, the key proponents are a couple, Paul and Patricia Churchland. And I always wonder what life must be like in the Churchland household. So, are our relationships going wrong? I find that sex without the neurochemical illusion that accompanied it is just an empty experience. Yeah, but as empty experiences goes, nothing gets the adrenaline racing, you know. As though that kind of weird experience of the Churchland household. You can't live like that. We are human beings, we must live it. So I'll leave it here. My say is, your mind, your own mind, your empathy is a lab, a free lab. You have 24 hours a day where you can run experiments how other people feel. And you can become brilliant at that. And no one can stop you doing it. And if you don't get that right first, if you can't learn to feel how other people feel and how their decisions will be taken, then I suggest all this other stuff, and even the behavioural economic stuff, which, let's face it, I get paid to champion, is actually not worth it if you can't understand how it works for other people. So that's why I applaud to you to support my proposition. Thank you very much.